Okay, hopefully I'm actually live now. Can y'all out there sound off right quick in the chat and let me know that you can see and hear me out there? I feel like to a certain extent I'm like always relearning the technology here. It's very strange. But yeah, sound off in those comments, folks. Let me know. Let me know if you're out there, and if so, you can see and hear me just fine. Bless me. This is part of how I make sure that all of the technology is working because sometimes things can go wrong in between where I'm at and where you're at. And so we must begin the process of figuring out where along that line the problem may be. So first step there is to see if there is a problem, which if y'all again could chime off in the comments and let me know. If that is indeed the case, I would appreciate it. Sonic Hill says, see you, hear you loud and clear from the UK. Outstanding. That's great to hear. Cool, cool. Sweet. Kurt Hobbs also says loud and clear. Hallelujah. Excellent. I'm so glad to hear that. Well, good. I'm going to give just a few minutes for people to kind of work their way on in and everything. We have a brand new live stream for this month. So if you're a first-time viewer of these live streams, the format kind of works like this. Essentially, I'm going to be giving a like 25-ish minute lesson on the topic of my choice, which, oh, hello, Samantha Ponga. All good from Perth. Excellent. That's good to hear. Yeah, I will be giving a half an hour lesson on the topic of my choice, which in this case has to do with making sure that clean lines happen in moves like stall chasers and in stacking and everything, because I have seen so many people on Instagram in the past week that do not have very clean, like, I don't know what to call it. It's like the top part of both stacking as well as stall chasers. And it's a really, really similar reason why that's happening, and it has to do with how people are controlling the momentum of their poi. So we're going to work on that tonight for about 20, 25 minutes, and then the last half an hour is going to be given over to doing a Q&A. So if you have questions for me, you can throw them into the chat, and I will answer them in the order that they come in, or if y'all can see that square button that's got the $ in it, that is a super chat. I will advance your question up in the queue if you happen to ask it with a super chat, because that helps out the channel, and we're all a fan of that, right? I'm also just like, daylight savings time is such a trip. It is still light out as I am doing this live stream, which that has not been the case now for a good, goodness, what, like 5 months, I want to say. I can go back and check that, but yeah, it's still light out. It's still blue skies out my windows right now. I've left the windows open so I can get just like a wee bit more sunlight as we're diving on in here. Um, yeah, and unfortunately, it's getting chilly here in DC over the weekend. It was reasonably warm today, but the temperature is going to drop tomorrow here. Spring, it comes in fits and starts, right? Anywho, yeah, so I've got 6 past the hour. It is 7 o'clock where I am. So I'm going to get started on things here, if that's all right with y'all. So again, it's 25 minutes a lesson, and then we're going to go ahead and do a live Q&A. So let me switch over to my full body camera here. Ba-bum! Hello, everyone. You will probably recognize this studio. It makes a lot of appearances in my videos. Yeah, oh, and in case anybody's wondering, yes, the live streams are sponsored by UltraPoi. I am using their brand new, like literally brand new. I just got them this week. These are their OrbPoi Pros. These are basically the 2.0 version of their OrbPoi, which there is going to be a review for these incoming. Some things that I know I like about them, they're definitely brighter. I haven't done a battery test on them just yet. The ropes are very different. I am going to have to probably shorten these up a wee bit because they feel a hair too long for me. But other than that, yeah, I'm a fan of them. I feel as though they are a good update to the product line. Anywho, so um, you might notice that I have the camera angled slightly up from where it normally is, and that's because like all the stuff I'm going to be showing off today is going to involve things that happen above my head, including this right here, which we usually refer to as the Mel, or at least I usually refer to it as the Mel. And of course, stall chasers. Now, what do these two moves have in common? Well, there's that moment up top over my head where we have this nice little horizontal line right there with the poi. If you're doing this properly, you can simply drop straight out of that moment up top, and you should find that your poi are doing pendulums, more or less in synchronous, right? This is true whether you are doing these stall chasers or whether you're doing that Mel stack, like so. Ooh, look at that. I love it when I get that nice little tabletop feel there. Um, so I have seen so many people in the past week on Instagram doing these stacks like this, where they're treating those two ends more like a flower petal than a stall. Or they're doing stall chasers in such a way where they like more or less have the right algorithm for their hands, but they don't have the thing going on where they're getting that nice flat spot on top, where we get that nice, lovely little line that gives us our horizontal moment there. Yeah. So, how come that happens? Um, it is because there is an aspect to how the poise momentum works over the head that a lot of people miss. And in fact, this is one of those ways that I can tell whether or not somebody has really gone deep on learning a lot of their kind of intermediate skills. So, like for instance, top stalls are a thing that a lot of people know how to do, but very few of them can do super cleanly. So as you're seeing right here, I'm doing my top stalls in such a way that I'm trying to nail that really, really nice tabletop feel with them where, boom, I've got the poi head out horizontal to my hand, which if you have ever worked through any of my stall exercises before, you'll know that the way I'm doing this is that I'm cheating slightly in that what I'm actually aiming to do is I'm aiming to have, rather than a perfect horizontal line, I want my poi out from the side of my hand, but my hand maybe an inch or two above that position. Watch me as I do this now. See how my hand always winds up just a hair above it? And here's the thing is I can do the perfect horizontal line, but I have to exit it so much faster. You see that? Whereas if I go for that position where my hand is just slightly above the poi head, all of a sudden it gives me like an extra half second of hang time. And that really, really helps to sell that moment of horizontalness there. Yeah? Moment of horizontalness. So as I'm doing these, the stack right here, I want you to notice that I'm also aiming for that moment where my hand is just slightly above my poi head every time I execute those top stalls here. You see that? It's the same thing, and that's part of how I'm nailing that really beautiful line that I just love in the middle of this. Because here's the thing, like lots and lots and lots of people when they do this stack, they'll nail that line, they'll nail that line, they'll nail that line, but they won't get that nice in-between line, that boom, which in my mind, like hitting that is really, 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 that is there's this great story about Michael Jackson as he was recording as he was recording Billie Jean, and apparently Quincy Jones tried to talk him out of putting the bass line in Billie Jean, the boom 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 bass line, And Michael Jackson came up with some euphemism. I think it was the jelly. He said, like, that's the jelly. That's the part of the song that makes me want to dance. And likewise, seeing that moment, right? Boom, there, that's the jelly of this stack for me. And it's only possible if you master that, or gain fluency, I should say, in that capacity to do those top stalls where you're getting your hand just a hair bit above the poi head. That's where you get that nice little moment of hang time. And the thing is that if you got both hands doing that at the same time, it doesn't look strange. It looks like you're nailing that really beautiful line. And that's what people like. Nailing that line is really what the stack is all about. Um, so, what exactly does this have in common with stall chasers? Well, similarly, we're looking for basically something that is a question of degrees and a question of finesse. Where normally when you do your top stalls, if you're going for that perfect horizontal moment, you have to exit it way quicker. And thus you kind of miss out on doing that line. Likewise, when you're doing stall chasers, you can easily just carry both of the poi over your head. But again, you wind up with them more in a V shape than a flat line, like boom, really nail that flat line. And the reason for this is really, really similar. Namely, you're looking to finesse the momentum of the poi just a little bit. It's a question of degrees. Like, you can drill this by, say, like starting off with your poi over to the side and then pulling it over your head. And as you're doing that, I really want you to imagine that your job is not to just get the poi over your head. It is to make it so that poi feels like you are just pulling it out of a deep mud pit to get there. Boom. It's the point of it is not to get the poi head over your hand. The point of it is to get the poi to move as little as possible as you're pulling it around. Yeah? It's the difference between that versus that. You see how big a difference that makes there? You're really just like dragging it through this kind of muck in the middle of the air. I know that's not a very appetizing image, but likewise, you're trying to keep your hand just like a couple inches above the poi as it's going up and over. And the way you do that is you're actually like taking away some of the momentum from the poi. Like rather than, I almost think of this as when most people do this, they're almost treating it like they're trying to do a stall over to the other side of their body, when really they should be thinking that this is almost like a pendulum as far as I'm concerned. Like I could very easily just drop into a pendulum from that top position there. Boom. Whereas if you're trying to get it over, that doesn't work as well. Really, you should be able to just drop into a pendulum at the top of that. And believe me, I know that being able to put that kind of finesse on the movement of it takes some training to get. Again, this is why when I see people that don't really nail it, it's like a dead giveaway to me. It's like, you've got some more intermediate work here to do in terms of controlling the momentum of your poi. This also applies to the lead poi, because of course that line doesn't work if only one of those poi is experiencing that kind of finesse in its movement here. We don't get the same line if, say, I'm really charging forward with the other poi. The way you get the lead poi to do the same thing is, believe it or not, this is really the same thing as that top stall. You see how my hand is kind of going into it like that? The only difference is you're kind of letting the poi then drag your hand once you're to that position where you have your hand like just a hair above the poi head as it's off to the side here. Boom, it kind of like pulls your hand over, and that's how you achieve that line. Again, check it out. As a stall, or as a top stall, as a top stall, as a top stall, versus not. The line is clean. When I go back, the line becomes cleaner. And do you also see how I'm slowing things down across the top here? It makes the line not only so much cleaner, but it has so much more time to land with the audience as it's going up and over. This is part of what makes this trick really, really pop. So top stalls are the key and pendulums are the key here. In fact, a drill that I would give you all in order to kind of nail this finesse with your own spinning would be to like start off with an extension here and then switch it into a pendulum, back into an extension, and then switch it into a pendulum. Do three of each. So one, two, three extensions, and then one, two, three pendulums. One, two, three extensions, and one, two, three pendulums before switching back. And with that, what this gives you is you start building it into your body how to make rapid adjustments to the momentum of the poi. This is really, really, really going to help you in taking away some of that momentum as you go across the top of this trick, which is so clutch for nailing that line. I'm hoping this is registering out there with y'all, because I've got my monitor like at the corner of my eye and everything, and I'm trying to just like, like really nail it in my head because I cannot both look at the monitor as well as talk to the camera at the same time. So I hope that my lines are as clean as I'm representing them as being here. Um, yeah. So I also think the idea of slowing things down is helpful in these stacks because a lot of people are just like trying to get to that point where the hands come together and everything. And I really think of this as like having several pauses in it. Pause, 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 every time a hand moves, there is a brief pause. And that's part of what creates those really clean lines as you're going back and forth. And of course, using that technique, you can also just break into pendulums any old time you want to, and they should be reasonably consistent in that regard. I'm seeing some people writing in the chat. Samantha Ponga says, I find the poi that's not moving moves. How can I improve and get it to stall cleanly? Does heavier poi help? Yes, it does actually. So there's a couple things that you can do in terms of the poi you're using that do help in terms of getting those stalls down. Number one is you use shorter poi. Shorter poi, just there's less there's less tether to have to control. So when you hit those stalls, it's a lot easier. There's not as much mass to have to mess around with. Also, heavier poi are really, really helpful for this. The funny thing is that like, what is it, Newton's third law of motion, that like the more mass you have, like, the inertia of it is really what you're messing around with here. So the less inertia it has, that is the less mass it has, the more likely it is it's going to go a little bit out of control. Whereas something that's heavier has a little bit more inertia to it is going to stop its movement more cleanly and facilitate it and like continue movement much more cleanly as well. So yeah, those are the two things I would recommend in terms of what the poi are doing to get down to get down your stalls. Now, if you want to become an absolute ninja at your stalls, here's how you do it. Hang on one second, I'll be right back. So, let me turn these on. These are a pair of these are a pair of the, I'm blanking on the name, Helix poi from Ultra Poi. I don't usually use the sets that have the lights as the handles, but this was just the most easily accessible set that I had. Now here's the thing, these are the polar opposite of everything that I just told you helps in getting stalls down. They're long, they're very light, the form factor is different. So why am I saying drill with these? Well, because if you can do clean stalls with light sets of poi that are super long, guess what? If you really really get these tricks down with, whoo, goodness, that's such an adjustment. Hang on, I can do this, I swear. There we go. God, that takes so much more nuance. So after a few reps of doing this, going back to the contact poi, like the difference is going to be night and day in terms of like how cleanly I do that stuff. So long poi that are quite light, if you can do everything cleanly, and bear in mind, I'm not advocating this for learning the basics of stalls. I'm advocating this for like refining your movement with them. And of course, getting down your stall chasers and everything as well. When you switch from light long poi to heavier shorter poi, guess what? All of the sudden, everything that was difficult, not, hang on, let me bring these out a little bit more. Everything that was difficult a minute or two ago suddenly becomes so much easier. So, and this is actually just like a trick in general, is all of the things in the make of the poi that like make it easier for you to do a trick. If you drill that trick with a set of poi that is not ideal for it, when you go back to a set of poi that is ideal for it, oh my goodness gracious, it will just make like such a world of difference in your training and how clean your tricks are. So that is a great question. Yes, I recommend learning stalls with shorter and heavier poi, and then once you've learned the basics, drill them with longer, lighter poi, and that will just like absolutely iron out all of the like kind of inconsistencies in your style. And when you return to your short, heavy poi, goodness, you will be unstoppable, absolutely unstoppable. Great question. And I see Sonic Hill. I struggle to nail the timing when doing the horizontal stacks to get them stall at the same time. Yeah, that does make sense. So you definitely, so part of the trick to this is that you're having to rush these top stalls because like pendulums do not take very long to complete at all. And you really just like ripping back and forth with this, you know, in order to get the timing to match up. I think this is actually something that a lot of people struggle with when they're learning stacks, and more specifically the Mel stack. So it's not a, oh, goodness, I got a super chat here. Yay! Hi, Kurt Hobbs. Um, we weren't to the Q&A just yet, but I will take the question anyway. What is the worst injury you have gotten from spinning poi? Mine was a black eye. I got a pretty nasty second-degree burn across both of my wrists. Talked about this just recently with another friend. This happened at PEC's Summer Festival. This was probably 6 or 7 years ago. I was doing a performance on stage, and my tethers were still chain instead of Technora. And I went in to do a spiral wrap, and that absolute nightmare that all of us always fear happened, where I got the chains wrapped around my wrists, and I couldn't get them off for a second. I really had to work to get them to untangle. And because of the proximity of everything, you know, the heat just went straight through the chains and gave me second degree burns on both of my wrists. And that is actually the only time that I have ever required medical attention for an injury that I got from spinning poi. If you're talking about more like a muscle injury, this is really obnoxious, but like, so I spent most of my, I've spent most of my life like sitting at a computer before I got into poi spinning. There were a few physical activities I did, but not much. And that meant that my iliopsoas muscle, which is a muscle that like anchors in your lower back, and it goes down through your groin and contacts with your with your femur, and it is one of those hip flexor muscles. It is a muscle that helps to bend your leg. Yeah, it's part of what allows you to pull your leg closer to your chest, right? Now, here's the thing: is if you don't do a lot of physical activity for a lot of your life and you're like sitting around mostly, that muscle shortens because just quite frankly, there's nothing going on in your life requires you to keep it long, and it's really obnoxious because that muscle is absurdly difficult to stretch because there's very few parts of it that are anywhere near the surface of your body. Um, and also, too, just like the way it works is such that stretching it is a nightmare. Um, and so um, I am prone to pulling my iliopsoas, especially on my left side. Again, I don't know why it's specific to my left hand side. It might be because most of my turns go to my left, so I'm kind of like pulling up into the hip flexor, which I'm willing to bet my dance teacher would be absolutely furious with me for doing. I don't think that that's proper form for that. But there was a time, this would have been like 4 years ago, I want to say. This was the year before the pandemic when I was actually playing around with tour jetés, and specifically tour jetés um, uh, working with fountains. And something that I had never even considered before I started working on that was the fact that the poi were going to add momentum to my jumps. This is not something that dancers usually have to think about. So all of the sudden, um, I was putting way more strain on myself doing these jumps than I normally did. And in the process, I pulled my iliopsoas on my left side so badly it took like a month and a half before I could even walk normally again. It was really agonizing because everywhere I would go, I'd feel this sharp pain in my leg and my back. Um, that's probably the worst muscle injury I've gotten from spinning poi, which I turned 42 in like 3 months. So there's a whole lot more of that coming my way. I can't wait. I can't wait. Thanks for the question, Kurt. Well, and it's 7:30, so I should probably transition over into Q&A here. Yeah, so just to summarize the lesson. Um, so if you are one of those people that does your stall chasers in such a way that you get more of a V than a straight line up top, or you do your stacks in such a way that you really only have a line when your hands are together, there's a whole piece of the puzzle you're missing. And the ways that you train it, number one, are to get down your top stalls in such a way that your hand is actually just slightly above the poi head, because that gives you more hang time in those horizontal moments. And also, you want to have greater control over the amount of momentum that you put into the poi. Be able to go back and forth between extensions and pendulums, as well as thinking of the lead part in stall chasers as being analogous to doing a top stall, but you're just kind of letting the poi head pull your hand through it like it's threading a needle. Not threading a needle, that's a different thing. And with the hand on the backside and everything, you're really thinking that you're pulling it through some muck. You're not just like looking to fling it over your hand. In fact, you're trying to keep it from going above your hand at all. It shouldn't be going above your hand until your hand is all the way over to the other side of your body. So those are some tips to clarify those lines. So I want to see some cleaner lines out there on Instagram. You all get to be the forces leading that charge. Yeah. So we're going to go ahead and switch over into full-on Q&A now, even though I have been answering some questions. Thank you, everybody, for asking them, and thank you, Kurt, so much for the super chat. That means so much to me. And as y'all can see, the super chat also means that I bumped your question up in the queue. So thank you so much, Kurt. Cool. This also is a great opportunity for me to remind you all that Tech Tips, my live streams, are sponsored by UltraPoi. You can go get a set of these Orb Poi Pros. I think they're available on the site now. You can use my promo code. That's DrexFactor with a zero instead of an O, and it'll get you a discount on these over at ultrapoi.com. It also helps out the channel. So everybody wins. Please do it. I would appreciate that. Thank you so much. Yay. All right. Now, go ahead and start getting those questions in. I will spend the next 30-ish minutes answering them. It is 7:32 where I'm at, and this is scheduled to go until about 8 o'clock. So I will be answering questions until then, unless things really pop off in the chat, and then I can always go back and go a little bit longer on this. But let's see. Let's see what questions you all have started with. Keep on leaving those in the chat so that we can keep the ball rolling here. Samantha Ponga says, "Ah, yes, I was told the same by a traditional New Zealand poi spinner who said that control is harder with long, light New Zealand poi." Thank you. You're welcome. Also, it's good to hear that I'm on the same page as some of our elders here. That's good to hear. Yeah, I mean, I really so I've found somebody locally here in DC who claims that she teaches traditional Maori style poi spinning, and I really want to learn more about it because something that I've noticed from watching a lot of videos of it is that with what I'll call Western style poi spinning, it kind of grew up with video, and because of that, it's very two-dimensional. Like it's very clearly created from the idea that you're just going to have like a single video camera set up and in a more or less flat plane, and you're creating patterns with the poi that match that flat plane. It's almost like poi by way of Wes Anderson, right? And watching some more traditional Maori uh, performances, one of those things that I've noticed is that it's actually designed to work from multiple different angles. Like you can, I've seen videos where somebody using the camera will walk back and forth, and every single angle that they capture the poi from looks good, which is not the case with Western poi spinning at all. There's definitely a point where you get too far off to the side and you just completely lose the clarity of the patterns. So I would definitely like to learn more traditional spinning and see what can come out of that. And like I said, I found somebody who's local who claims that she teaches it. So I am probably going to reach out and see what it might look like to take a lesson or two from her. And of course, I will let you all know what that looks like for me. But yes, that's really cool to hear that I'm on that same page. I'm glad that I independently discovered some of those training techniques too. Samantha says, ripped skin off my fingers with chains. Yeah. Oh, actually, that's another bad injury I gave myself. So very early on in my time doing three poi, and this is part of the reason I don't really do three poi anymore. I went and taught at fire drums, and I had been doing so much three poi with some ropes that were really not great that it tore off it tore off the callus in between my ring finger and pinky on my right hand, and I had to go teach a class like that, and like it literally got so bad that my hand was bleeding, and like I was in so much pain that I literally just like halfway through the class and was like, I'm sorry, everybody, but I cannot continue. I need to go seek medical attention. I need to get this bandaged up. Is the only time that I have stopped a class prematurely. It's literally the only time in the entire time that I've been doing flow arts. And annoyingly enough, there was this one guy in the class who had showed up late. Like I don't know if he'd slept in or what, but he showed up like 10 or 15 minutes in the class, and he came up to me after I said I was ending the class early and was just like, "Hey, can you like teach me everything that we covered in class?" And just like, are you kidding me with this right now? Like I nearly burst into tears. And then I was just like, okay, screw it. So I gave him like a 2 minute kind of summary of everything we'd done in class. And I very deliberately did like, I was just like, this is what we did. 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 I didn't like try and go into any detail on it or anything like that. A, because I'm just like, dude, you showed up late. And number two, it's like, I straight up said that I needed medical attention, and you're still asking for this from me. So this is as much care as you get here. I'm sorry. But yeah, I've also had some misadventures with skin and poi stripping that skin off. It's not pleasant. It's not pleasant at all. Loamax says, I have a long beard and long hair. How do I avoid catching them on fire when I go for my first burn? Um, so believe it or not, it is actually much harder to light up hair than you think it is. Um, so here's the thing is like if you tie your hair back in a ponytail, um, and like, you're the thing that really is more likely to light on fire is if you have like frayed ends, because surface area is what makes for easy burning. If your beard is well groomed, if you have your hair back in a ponytail, you're in a much better position. That doesn't mean that you can't light them on fire, but do bear in mind that even if your beard or hair does light on fire, it's almost certainly going to go out within a couple seconds. Unless you get a fuel transfer, hair will light up for a moment, it will stink to high heaven, and then it'll almost immediately go out. Um, I knew a guy once who actually grew out his hair and deliberately went to a fire festival to cut it short again by burning it. He spent the entire weekend in the fire circle trying to burn his hair down to a shorter length, and it didn't work. Like literally on the last day, you can see that definitely some patches had been singed, but by and large, his hair was exactly the same length as when he walked into that fire festival. And he'd been trying all weekend. Like he took a torch and like went to it, trying to burn his hair, and he just couldn't make it happen. So God's honest truth is like it's actually so much harder to burn hair than you think it is. If your hair does burn, it'll go out within a few seconds. If it doesn't, make sure like, and also too, I should have said this first. Make sure you're spinning fire with a safety spotter. If your safety spotter sees your hair light on fire, they will call it out. You can put it out pretty easily, and like by and large, it will not ruin your haircut or your beard. You will not get like a massive chunk of your beard gone doing that, unless something goes extremely wrong. Again, like there is always an exception, like a fuel transfer or something like that. But tie your hair back, make sure your beard's well groomed. If you want an extra layer of protection, you can always dampen your beard or your ponytail before you go out and spin. That will help. There are also some sprays that you can use that have fire retardants in them on hair. But honestly, I wouldn't worry about it all that much. It'll scare you more than anything else. Or if you're looking not to be scared, then yeah, I mean the bad news is that it like shit happens. So yeah, tie it back in a ponytail. Make sure your beard's well groomed. Dampen both before you go out for an extra layer of protection. But like you're probably gonna singe some hair at some point, and it's not a big deal. Like go home, shower, nobody will be able to tell. Yeah, that's the long answer to that question. Oh, and Lomex says I'll be 42 this year as well. Hey, we both get the secret to life, the universe, and everything this year. Way to way to. Oh, and that also means that you were also born in 1980. Good year to be born. Samantha Ponga says, most guys wet their beards. Yes, yes, that is true. Um, wetting down your hair helps a lot. Samantha Ponga also says, I'm so glad you're able to connect with somebody. You're so right. New Zealand poi has a lot of choreo involved, lots of influence from Asian island choreography, etc. I think that Steadicam would boost it up. I agree. Um, yeah, it's funny because so I think this was last year. There was a video of me spinning at the spot in Georgetown, down on the edge of Washington D.C., where there was like this LED display above this alleyway, and I was kind of traveling down it and everything. And um, ironically enough, the friend that I was shooting with that night, we actually we were waiting to for the crowd to clear out at another location. So like we just shot this footage because we were bored and we were just messing around. And I posted this footage online, and it was like probably the most popular video I uploaded on Instagram all year. And like it's a moving shot, and it's me playing around in 3D in ways that poi spinners usually don't. And I remember I have a friend who's a hooper who watched that video and like gave me so many compliments on it and everything. And she came back to me at one point and she's like, "So I went and looked up other poi spinners, and they don't do it like that." I'm like, "No, no, they don't." So I kind of feel like my style's already moving in a direction that involves more like three-dimensional spinning as it is. So I feel like that's a pretty logical progression is to learn some more traditional style poi spinning because it's very three-dimensional. And I feel like that's something that comes a lot with focusing on it as a dance. That like dancing really inhabits three dimensions in a way that creating patterns just doesn't. So yeah, I I'll reach out to that local spinner and see what's what on that. But yeah, a Steadicam would definitely boost that up. I think that that would look awesome. I totally agree. Mortical says, I throw mine in a fire-resistant beanie. Oh, your long hair, you mean? Yeah, that's also a good option. There's tons of great options there for dealing with long hair. Ironically enough, I've never had terribly long hair while I've been spinning poi. I used to have much longer hair in my early 20s, but and I kind of like moved through an emo phase where I had like chin length hair, and now we've kind of arrived to me entering middle age with a more respectable haircut, at least a more respectable haircut for me. But yeah, I've never, I don't think I've ever spun poi with super long hair. Sonic Hill says, would you be willing to do a behind the scenes video of your UltraPoy videos, how you set up pick locations, etc.? Yeah, yeah, no, I'd totally be down for that. I did not know people were interested in that, but I could totally do that, sure. Um, I will give you spoilers. I already have the location of April's video picked out. Um, I thought that I had shot everywhere in Silver Spring, and then randomly, when I was biking home from a therapy session, I spotted this. Like, literally, it's a park that is tucked up behind a building in such a way that I'm just like, I've biked past this spot hundreds of times, and I have never noticed that this park was there. So that is going to be the location of April's shoot. And wouldn't you know it, it's also going to be a shoot that involves a Steadicam. So yes, I would be happy to document that process for sure. Cool. I didn't know people are interested in that. That's good to know. Samantha Ponga, nice. Which video was that? Sorry, I've only just got back into poi again. Oh my God. Samantha is one of my Patreon supporters. So what I will tell you, Samantha, is I will dig up the URL on that because I have easily uploaded 100 videos since then. But I will send you the link to that via DM because I don't think I could find it with any less than like it would take a little bit of work for me to dig it up. So I will direct message you that link for sure. Lomax, would be awesome to see some subject tracking drone videos while you spin. Yes, it would. It would be so awesome. So, fun fact, you cannot fly drones in the Washington, D.C. area. You have to go through such a nightmarish process of getting permitting to do that because the airspace around DC is so sensitive. Like, um, Washington National Airport, the one that is easiest to get to, it's the one that you can get to by metro. Um, it apparently is like one of the least pleasant airports for pilots to fly into because they physically cannot enter Washington, D.C. airspace. So they have to follow the Potomac River all the way down to Washington, D.C., and they have to hang a sharp right to land at the airport rather than being able to swing out and make a more gentle landing. So if you ever come into Washington National Airport, you're going to have to do this like hairpin right turn in order to land at this bloody airport. Um, so it's a number of things. Number one is that we have three airports that serve the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area, and there are very specific regulations about where you can fly drones in relation to those runways. In addition, there are extremely specific rules about what aircraft can occupy the airspace above, like within a certain number of miles of the National Mall and all that. And like, believe me, I have the most beautiful idea in my head for a bit of choreography that would be shot from a drone going around my body. And I think this was like 4 years ago. Like I had this vision of this amazing choreography, and I started getting to work on this. I'm just like, oh, can I rent a drone? Can like I you know get somebody to can I hire out a drone operator? And I looked around and I couldn't find any listings for people that could shoot in my areas. Why is that? So I was like, okay, maybe I can just purchase a drone, right? Looked it up and boom, all of a sudden it's like all these regulations and all these hoops you have to go through. It costs hundreds of dollars to get a permit for it. Like it's a royal pain in the butt. There are some people that get around it by essentially like building their own drones that do not have GPS systems built into them. Basically, if the drone has a GPS, it physically will not take off in the DC area. Like the software is built in such a way that if the GPS detects itself in the Washington, D.C. area, the drone will not take off. But there are people that hack together their own drones that don't have GPS that can fly in the DC area. Well, I shouldn't say can fly. They do fly in the DC area. The problem is that you have to do it on the DL, and almost all of them are racing drones. So the pilots are used to going real fast. They're not used to like taking their time as they video something. So at one point, I did come across a drone operator that had one of those hacked together drones, and I got him to shoot a little bit of test footage with it. And the results were just not good. Like he just like he's a drone racer. He's used to doing these incredibly tight hairpin turns and like maneuvering the thing in such a way that it's really really shaky. I had to run the footage through like three levels of stabilization in my video editing software. Um, and he didn't have a really good feel for like how much of my body should be in the frame. There was like literally it was all either shots of like way too close or so far away you couldn't tell what I was doing, and there was no middle ground there. So it didn't work out. There's a guy out in Colorado that I have talked to about and who does shoot poi videos with drone footage, and I've like bounced some ideas off of him, um, and then the pandemic happened. So if I find myself heading out to Colorado and I reconnect those dots with this gentleman, I'd love to shoot a drone video. But as it stands right now, I basically just can't shoot one in DC because the permitting is so difficult, and the only people that I've found that do fly drones around here are doing it with hacked together drones that like don't have a good feel for shooting video of somebody with it. So sadly, this really broke my heart too. Like you have no idea. I was working on this for months, and there's nothing worse than I mean, there's plenty of things worse, but it sucks really, really bad when you really, really apply yourself to solving a problem and you get to the end of it and you realize that the problem just really isn't solvable. So if I would love to shoot some drone footage someday, but it's going to mean getting outside of DC to do it, and probably finding a drone operator who is really, really comfortable with shooting flow arts footage. That's where we are, unfortunately. That was such a long story. um, Samantha Ponga gives me lots of smiles and says, drones, LOL, love it. I love it too. I'd really love to be able to do it. Dear. Lomax says, access to a warehouse or indoor space, low-tech cheat, LOL. Not suggesting any laws being broken, but yeah. So again, if the drone has a GPS, it won't take off, even if it's indoors. Just won't do it. Like they actually like went to some lengths to like to really 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 make sure, and I understand why. Like, you know, not shockingly, they're really sensitive about quite a few things in the Washington, D.C. area. Airspace is one of them. Flammable liquids are another one, let me tell you. We've had truly a delightful time figuring out doing fire spinning in Washington, D.C. Basically, like, unless you're doing it in somebody's backyard, it's pretty damn hard to do it legally. Um, Mandula Inkara says, "Oh hi! At least one time I caught you live streaming. Yes, yes, you did. Welcome, welcome." Um, Samantha Ponga says, "I just got an Ignis Pixel Poi. I remember you shot a video on LED Poi and best shutter speed. Going to look for that. Guess what? There's another one coming. Keep your eyes out, because I changed my technique for doing this recently, and I think it's going to be coming out on Monday. Um, I outline from start to finish camera settings, editing software, the stages of the editing software, what plugins to use, where you should do your color grading, whole step-by-step process. That should be the video coming out Monday. So keep your eyes peeled. Because yeah, again, to tell what is probably a longer story than I need to. I've been doing that technique for all of the sponsored Flow Toys videos that I've been doing, and I wasn't really happy with a lot of what was coming out of it, because generally I take, like, a single frame and I turn that into a thumbnail, and more often than not, I was finding that my body was moving around so much that it was blurry in the thumbnail. And I really, really, really did not like that, because in my mind, part of the point of this is showing off like dance techniques and everything. And I want to show off dramatic poses in these thumbnails. So um, there's something called the 180-degree shutter rule that is really common in like film theory and like cinematography. And you can't do the 180-degree shutter rule if you're shooting trails. You just can't, because otherwise you wind up with gaps in the trails. And I will explain why this is in that video. But the long and short of it is that I figured out a way to fake the 180-degree shutter rule. It involves shooting in slow motion, and it involves going through multiple stages of the editing. But it works. I finally have videos with trails that appear in the way that you would expect for the 180-degree shutter rule. So I can finally get these nice little thumbnails where you can see my body clearly, where I'm not just a blurry mess. And it's awesome. And I'm so happy that I found this technique and that it works. So I believe it's Monday's video is going to outline my current technique for doing it. So keep your eyes peeled. If it doesn't come out this Monday, it'll be the Monday following. Because I didn't get to edit the video today, but I should be editing it either Saturday or Sunday. But yeah, keep your eyes peeled for that, because yeah, it's cool. It's real cool. Manjula Ankara says, is there a specific topic going on? So I taught for a half an hour on how to clarify lines in stall chasers as well as in horizontal stacks. And I've been doing Q&A since then, whatever questions come up. I gave everybody way too much information on the regulations around drone operations in Washington, D.C., as well as wanting to learn some traditional Maori style poi spinning because I think it's going to wind up looking better in 3 dimensions than Western style poi spinning does. And I think I might have found a person to learn that from, but we shall see. So you're all caught up now. Oh, also, we talked a bit about injuries. Spoilers, the worst injuries I've given myself. I've stripped away callus in between these 2 fingers, playing around with 3-poi. I've pulled my iliopsoas muscle real bad, learning how to just going ham on my tourgettes, and I've also given myself a pretty significant burn with some chain tethers from a spiral wrap that did not go as planned. So now you're all caught up, I think. Cool. Lomax is looking forward to it. I'm glad to hear that. So I am seeing that it is just a couple minutes until the hour. So if you have any last minute questions, get them in now because I'm going to shut this down right around 8 o'clock my time. It is 7:58 my time currently. So any last minute questions, please get them in uh, while I'm wetting my whistle here with this La Croix. People still say that, right? Wet my whistle? I don't know. And if you don't have any questions, you can just say thanks, and that will do. Um, Manjula and Kara, oh, I hope you are feeling better now. I am. I guess no point in telling you to be careful. Be careful with what? uh, Injuries? No, I'm pretty careful. I stretch pretty regularly now. It's very helpful. Yeah, definitely. Um, yeah. Well, I'm gonna. Oh, what is the April Patreon focus? Oh, you mean for the flow circle? That's a great question. Let me look up the answer to that, actually. It looks as though the flow circle is going to be about bad habits most beginners have to unlearn. That's what won the poll. Cool. Yeah. So, for those of you that don't know, I do a thing with my Patreon called the Flow Circle where I do a really brief 5 minute lesson every week that is intended to give people drills that they take up no more than like 15 minutes a day. So if you're pressed for time, this is stuff that you can do to improve on your poi spinning without it really being a drain on your schedule. So that is the Flow Circle and is available at the $10 level on my Patreon. Thanks for bringing that up, Samantha. That's a great way for me to be able to talk about that with folks. Huzzah! Um, um, Mangela Ankara says maybe next time I can catch you a little bit earlier. Huge time zone difference does not make it easy. I believe it. Yeah, I hope so too. I think I'm going to be like doing these the last Friday of the month from here on out. If for no other reason than I now have a crew that's getting together to do gaming on the third Friday of the month, and I think the last Friday of the month is just easier to remember anyway. So yeah, I think last Friday of the month is going to be it from here on out. It's just easier. I don't know why I stuck with the third Friday of the month for so long. Who knows? Um, yeah. Samantha Paga says Poi Math is winning. Yeah. So there's a vote right now on my Patreon, voting on topics for the next couple months' videos. And yes, Poi Math is winning. Um, I can't wait to lay some Poi Math down on y'all. Morticall says I'm heading to Flame this year for my first time. Any tips? Yeah, it's probably going to rain. Make sure you camp in a space that is uphill because the fields turn into soup when that happens. Um, Other than that, I'm trying to think if I have any other like. So I don't know what Flame this year is going to be like because there was a massive staff turnover in the time since I left Flame until now. So there's a lot of stuff that I just straight up don't know what it's going to be like this year. So maybe you can tell me when you come back, like what was your favorite part of it? Because I don't know what's going to be different and what's going to be the same. So Lomax says, thanks for all that you do, man. Really enjoy your videos. You're so welcome. Thank you. Samantha Ponga, definitely. I have bad habits. Me too. Me too. Let me tell you. Mortikal says, thank you for all the work you do. You're so welcome. And thank you all for tuning in tonight. I'm going to go ahead and draw us to a close here. Once again, thanks to UltraPoi for sponsoring Tech Tips. Go check out their OrbPoi Pro over on their website at ultrapoi.com. Use the promo code DrexFactor with a 0 instead of an O at checkout to get a discount on your order. It also helps out the channel. So everybody wins here. Please and thank you in advance. Yeah, I thank you all for watching tonight. You can catch me probably the last Friday of April as well. Oh, that's okay. I'll be at work last Friday of every month. Glad to catch one live session. Glad you could too. Glad you could too. Cool. Thank you all so much for watching. Have yourselves a good evening and happy spring. We're finally in spring now. Yay! Which I reckon if you live in the southern hemisphere, you've still got some warm days for at least a little while yet. But we in the northern hemisphere are just getting to our warm days, so I'm super excited about that. Thank you all so much. Have a great night, and I will see you all soon. Yeah, have a good one. Peace.